My name is Ayman Tarabishi. I'm the Deputy Chair of the Department of Management at the George Washington University School of Business. I'm also President and CEO of the International Council for Small Business. We are delighted and we are honored to start our second GW Entrepreneurship Week. And yesterday we had an event in the afternoon, so we want to thank our colleagues, Dana, for starting off on a Sunday, on a weekend. But our official start is today, Monday. So we are just delighted to kick off our GW Entrepreneurship Week and our second annual one. And we inaugurated the idea last year with the purpose of creating a week-long worth of activities for George Washington University students, alumni, faculty, staff, and the community to join in a week worth of activities and exploration on the topic of entrepreneurship, innovation, creativity, social entrepreneurship, a lot of different exciting activities that we were delighted to have everybody join here. And I started the idea because I thought that we can never not get enough of creating opportunities and getting people excited about a brighter and better future in times like such as this today. This really hits home in terms of allowing people to join us for an exploration of a better world in the future. I am the Deputy Chair of the department. I want to thank all our colleagues in the School of Business and the university for supporting this activity. And I'm also the President and CEO of the International Council for Small Business, hosted within the Department of Management at GW School of Business. So you can see the synergy between what ICSB does, the International Council for Small Business, and GW. So we have partnered up on this event, and like we did last year, and we are ready to go. And before we get into the presentation and the topic itself, I want to introduce our newest colleague in the Department of Management, and he comes from South Korea. Dr. Jungho Suh is a visiting teaching assistant professor of management and tourism and studies at the George Washington University School of Business. He joined GWSB just recently from the Surrey International Institute of Dongbei University of Finance and Economics in China, where he served as an assistant professor of tourism management for 3 years. His areas of expertise including destination branding, destination marketing, sustainable tourism management, social media marketing, hospitality marketing, service management, and the sharing economy. So this is absolutely just exciting. We kick off this session with the title of Disruptive Innovation in the Hospitality and Tourism Industry. We are all experiencing it here. Dr. Jungho, thank you for kicking us off for GW Entrepreneurship Week. We are just delighted to have you here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ayman. Thank you for your great introduction. It's my first time joining GW October Entrepreneurship Week. It's my honor. Just for the logistics maintenance, can you see my slides okay, everyone?
Yes, they're exceptionally well. It's beautiful.
Also, did I turn my camera on?
Yes, and we see you.
Great. Just want to check out. Right. So let's start. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Jungho Suh. As Dr. El Tarabishi introduced, I'm a visiting assistant professor of tourism and management at the George Washington University School of Business. I'm so excited to talk to you this morning at this inspiring event, the GW Entrepreneurship Week. Today, we will focus on two concepts: disruptive innovation and the hospitality and tourism industry. For today's session, disruptive innovation in the hospitality and tourism industry, we will cover the following topics. First off, we will take a quick look at an overview of the hospitality and tourism industry and key concepts of disruptive innovation in the hospitality and tourism industry. After exploring such conceptual knowledge, we will move on to discuss the findings from the 3 different empirical studies on disruptive innovation in the context of Airbnb, the home sharing platform, or the peer-to-peer accommodation platform. I believe almost all of you have experienced Airbnb accommodation before, right? Okay. So first, a quick overview of the hospitality and tourism industry. I assume some of you have certain backgrounds of understandings of hospitality and tourism studies, and some of you haven't, studied this area of studies before. So let me just delimit the scope of today's topic, right? So by taking a look at some of the theoretical frameworks, right? Okay, Dr. Claire Gunn's tourism system model that you can see on the screen right now is one of the pioneering theoretical frameworks in the hospitality and tourism industry. And as you can see in this model, a tourist as an actor of these dynamics is positioned in the center of this model. The main topics of today's session, disruptive innovation and the home sharing accommodation, are relevant to the highlighted elements. You can see three highlights, right? Highlighted in red. In this framework, tourist information and services and facilities are the relevant elements to today's topic. Also, to see the scope of the hospitality and tourism industry, this umbrella of hospitality and tourism shows the scope of the industry. And in Professor John Walker's classification of the hospitality and tourism industry, the researcher categorizes the industry into 5 sectors: travel, lodging, meetings and events, restaurant, and recreation industry. So we will focus on the lodging industry today. You can see the subsectors under the lodging industry as well. Maybe we can add rental homes to this original categorization these days. So what is disruptive innovation? Disruptive innovation. Disruptive innovation is the concept pioneered by the late Professor Clay Christensen, a well-known, well-regarded Harvard Business School professor of management who passed away in early 2020. Kara Swisher, the tech journalist, paid tribute to Professor Christensen in her New York Times opinion piece last January. And I'd like to recommend reading this article to know about his life, his legacy, and his theory, disruptive innovation as well. So what is disruptive innovation? If you look it up in the dictionary, you will see that disruptive is defined as causing or tending to cause disruption. So what is disruption? Disruption is defined as disturbance or problems which interrupt an event, activity, or process. It sounds a little bit negative, right? Again, if you look it up in a dictionary, innovation, as we all have our own understanding, is defined as a new method, idea, product, etc. Dr. Christensen defined disruptive innovation as a process whereby a smaller company with fewer resources is able to successfully challenge established incumbent businesses. He also added disruptive innovation is the idea that startups made up of outsiders could find ways to create new markets and new value and disrupt and overwhelm established companies. So from this model or his formula of this disruptive innovation is pretty simple. First, disruptive products are simpler and cheaper. They generally promise lower margins, not greater profits. Second, disruptive technologies typically are first commercialized in emerging or insignificant markets. And third, leading firms, most profitable customers, generally don't want and indeed initially can't use products based on disruptive technologies. So let me use an analogy with the art movement. Pierre Renoir and Claude Monet, two representative painters, artists in the Impressionist movement, emphasize an accurate depiction of light and the object itself. We have known these two art pieces from books or actual art pieces in the museums as the representative masterpieces of the Impressionism, right? On the other hand, let's compare these two art movements, Impressionism and Cubism. So the pioneer of Cubism or the Cubist movement, such as Pablo Picasso, disrupted the mainstream trend of the past era of the art movement, which was Impressionism. Impressionism was one of them, by analyzing and disassembling objects in an abstract form like this piece on the left. So what about cases in the industry or in business practices? We can think about Netflix as one of the recent cases of disruptive innovation. Netflix's initial business model was an e-commerce business similar to Amazon's original business model, but DVDs. So Amazon originally sold books online, right, before it became an e-commerce giant. So Netflix eventually pushed Blockbuster, the brick and mortar DVD rental shop, out of business. After that, Netflix pivoted its business to VOD service, video on demand service, with their subscription business model. And some researchers argued that it has reshaped the entire show business, including the film industry, the TV networks, and even the theater business. Okay. Now, let's move on to the hospitality and tourism industry. All right. Airbnb. Airbnb, one of the leading companies in the peer-to-peer sharing digital content platform, can be considered as disruptive innovation in the hospitality and tourism industry. These numbers show that Airbnb already passed the largest hotel chain in the world by its volume and quality. It has more than 7 million listings, rental homes listed on Airbnb platform marketplace. And its market capitalization is projected approximately $35 billion, which is similar or a little bit larger than the largest hotel chain in the world, which is Marriott. Okay. The actual causal relationships of the impact of Airbnb on the hotel performance metrics have been studied in various contexts. And as we can see in this slide, because of Airbnb's rise or introduction to the market, 1.3% fewer hotel rooms booked. And also the entire hotel industry, the revenue of the entire hotel industry has been decreased approximately 1.5% after the rise of Airbnb. In the recent HBS case study about Marriott International, this figure of largest lodging companies by rooms and listings shows Airbnb now has more lodging listings than any other hotel companies in the world. Okay. Approximately 7 million listings, as we've seen in the earlier slides, as of 2020, and as of 2019, the Marriott is approximately 1.3 million listings. So now let's learn more about the Airbnb's impact on the hospitality and tourism industry using the findings from the empirical studies. This first one is entitled A Study of Customer Engagement, Satisfaction, and Behavior Intentions Among Airbnb Users. And this paper has passed the first round of peer review, and the authors, including myself, are currently working on the revision for the second and hopefully final round of peer review. And the partial findings, part of findings of this research and the abstract was presented at the 2018 Global Marketing Conference in Tokyo. So the authors focused on the concept of customer engagement in the context of Airbnb, and the problem statements of this study are as follows. First, Airbnb the authors saw that Airbnb disrupted the entire hotel industry, and travelers seek more authentic and engaging local experiences than before. And marketers in the traditional lodging industry have realized the crucial impact of Airbnb on their business. And fourth, researchers also have noticed the impact of the Airbnb phenomena. So based on these problem statements, so this was the conceptual model. If you're not familiar with, statistical analysis or qualitative research approach, is fine. Just think about these circles, concepts as a we are calling them constructs, but just consider them as logical concepts or some academic concepts, just knowledge, right? And see the arrows and directions of these arrows. You can see H1, which means hypothesis, first hypothesis, hypothesis 1, 2, 3, and show the relationships between these concepts, right? And customer engagement, customer satisfaction, customer behavior intentions, they're all marketing concepts or marketing variables, right? And we focused on customer engagement in this study by taking a look at details of customer engagement, which we call them sub-dimensions of customer engagement. And in this study, we confirmed that, the researchers confirmed that customer engagement, identification, enthusiasm, absorption, interaction consist of customer engagement. And customer engagement influences on customer satisfaction, more specifically Airbnb guest satisfaction. And customer engagement also affects Airbnb guest behavior intentions, such as Airbnb guest will recommend Airbnb to their friends or leave a positive reviews online. Things like that can be an example of Airbnb guests' behavior intentions. Intention to do something, intention to recommend, intention to revisit reuse Airbnb platform for their next travel, purchase, things like that. Okay. So now you can see the logical relationships, right, between these marketing concepts of marketing. So more specifically, customer engagement in marketing and in our study was defined as a two-way interaction between subjects and objects. Subjects, for example, consumers or tourists, and objects, for example, brands or tourism attractions or tourism destinations. To talk more about customer engagement, enthusiasm, one of the subdimensions of customer engagement. Enthusiasm, we asked questions like, I like to learn more about Airbnb as one of the measurements, scales of enthusiasm. So we want to learn customer engagement of Airbnb guest experience by asking questions such as, I'd like to learn more about Airbnb, and it will explain the dimension, the concept of enthusiasm, which will eventually explain customer engagement. Okay, so the findings of this study shows that you can just ignore all the details of these statistics or numbers, just focus on here, 1, 2, 3, you can see the positive relationship between these concepts, right? Positive relationships, and the numbers 0.3, 0.17, 0.74, these represent the degree of the relationships between these concepts, okay? So key findings of this study, more specifically, practical implications of this study. One of them is from this conceptual model, showing the relationship, confirm the relationships between these concepts, implies opportunities to experience local life and to feel part of the local community, which particularly appeal to novelty seekers. This implication was drawn based on these construct, these marketing concept, customer engagement. So other types of accommodations other than Airbnb, other types of rental home businesses, or even the hotel businesses can get some idea from these findings to appeal to this novelty seeker group. They could provide local experiences such as guided museum tours, sporting events, food tastings, and art classes to give more local experiences. Right. And also I want you to focus on this part, right? Okay. And relationships over here, right? Also the role of host and guest, Airbnb host could also be emphasized as a means of engaging customers. Since guests value host responsiveness, host might be trained to interact productively with guests by replying in a timely manner. And maybe researchers can suggest Airbnb to add more training sessions for their Airbnb hosts. So these are the highlights of the research outcomes from this study. Let's move on to the second empirical research. This paper is about structure relationships. Let's just think about relationships among service quality, perceived value, satisfaction, and revisit intention. We gave an emphasis on service quality. Airbnb still empirical studies of Airbnb experiences is still, there's many gaps in this area of studies. So service quality has been studied many times in the context of hospitality management, hospitality business, but the Airbnb study doesn't have many different variations of service quality studies. So my co-authors and I examined the concept of service quality and perceived value in the context of Airbnb guest. And this one was published in International Journal of Tourism Sciences. And likewise, you can see the conceptual model, the relationships, and just focus on the arrows, okay? If you're not familiar with research models like this, just see the flow or the relationships. The arrow goes to the one direction in this model. Service quality affects perceived value and satisfaction, and perceived value affects satisfaction, satisfaction affects behavior intention. And okay, the outcome, let's just focus on the outcome. So this outcome shows that the hypothesized relationships among these four concepts: service quality, perceived value, satisfaction, and revisit intention. Service quality, for example, one of the service quality examples of service quality concept can be factors of tangibles, such as design of the Airbnb rental home, exterior and interior design. Since service is intangible, you cannot touch or physically feel service. So that's why many service providers try to tangibilize service through the design of the interior of their hotel rooms or Airbnb rooms, or the uniform can be another example of factors or elements of tangibles, right? And from the findings of this study, the factors of tangibles and understanding and caring, those are all dimensions of service quality or the elements of service quality. Once again, factors of tangibles, understanding, and caring were found to be the key factors in determining service quality of Airbnb accommodations. So understanding as a part of service quality can be described as understanding the specific needs of guests. Caring can be interpreted, caring of service quality can be interpreted, willingness to serve guests or treat guests in a friendly manner. Things like that can be interpreted as the caring factor of service quality. Okay, so tangibles, understanding, and caring were found to be the key factors in determining the service quality of Airbnb accommodations. And these results emphasize the role of the host, because hosting techniques and interactions can positively influence the guest's real-life experience as well. Right. So from these two studies, I could confirm the following. First, Airbnb as a disruptive innovation has reshaped the hospitality industry, as I hypothesized. We confirmed that. And travelers seek more authentic and engaging local experiences, especially from the first study. We could see that from the influence of customer engagement, right? And marketers in the traditional lodging industry have realized the crucial impact of Airbnb on their business. So also the findings from these two empirical studies suggest Airbnb's unique selling points, such as new features like Airbnb Plus, Airbnb Experience, more specifically, that provides local experience, local activities, and customer loyalty, importance of customer loyalty by starting badge system for the host and for the guest, super host, super guest badge system. It's like a customer loyalty program for any other hotel companies, and try to raise the level of customer engagement through segmentizing Airbnb guest preferences by using those new features on Airbnb. So for hotel managers, these are the takeaways. Let me highlight some of them here. Community building can be one of the suggestions for the hotel managers to compete with Airbnb. So hotel companies can redefine concierge service as hotel Airbnb hosts are providing their local authentic experiences. That can be one example. And customer engage oriented HRM training can be another takeaway for hotel managers. Right, and based on the limitation of these two studies, so these four parts are discussed as the key limitations of the current two studies. So we, the authors, the researchers, realized we need to take a cross-cultural approach. And let me just not cover everything from here. So it's too much academic. So cross-cultural study of value priorities between US and Chinese Airbnb guests has been conducted based on the limitation and reflection from these two previous studies. And this one is not finished yet. We had the draft has been finished, but we are still working on some revision before we submit to our target journal. So we are trying to study two different markets of the same Airbnb experience between US and Chinese market. And the context was social and economic benefits. And we used the framework of cultural value priorities and two concepts, social benefits and economic benefits, were used. And more specifically, the cross-cultural framework of Hofstede's individualism and collectivism framework was used to see the different effect of Airbnb experience toward two different cultures, US and China. And this is the full model, not differentiating between two cultures. Here you can see two different effects of US and China, and we have significant differences between some of the factors, not all of them. Here, H2 and H4. So let me just try to summarize, give you easier understanding on this, a bit complicated table here. So social benefits, such as to work as to experience as a group or a group tour, group travel, like packaged group tours, things like that, can be one of the examples of social benefits of travel. And behavior intentions is like intention to use, revisit, and recommend Airbnb experiences to their friends, to others, things like that. And social benefits shows the higher effect to Chinese Airbnb users, and economic benefits like saving money and time for your travel can be one of the examples of the economic benefits of travel or Airbnb use, and shows higher and more US travelers, US Airbnb users showed higher sensitivity towards economic benefits than the Chinese Airbnb users. So these were the outcomes or the interpretation of this table. Okay, so after understanding the cultural orientation of Airbnb guests in the Chinese market, we can give a suggestion to the practitioners based on this finding that marketers at Airbnb, the company itself, and Airbnb hosts too, can determine whether to bring social benefits further into focus more on the social benefits for Chinese market, as well as the extent to which the promotional elements in social factors are consistent with the existing market from the where the company's origin, the US market. So we will emphasize, we will suggest to the marketers at the Airbnb headquarters itself or the Airbnb host to focus more on social benefits or social factors when they promote their rental homes in the Chinese market. And for the so on the other hand, for the US market, we will recommend emphasizing economic benefits of using Airbnb in the US market. So this was one of the findings, and we may need to add few more implications for this developing study, for this cross-cultural study. Okay, so these are three empirical study findings of three empirical studies in the context of Airbnb and disruptive innovation. So that's all from sharing on my end. And if there's any questions, I will take your questions from now on.
Great, thank you very much. This has been exceptional here. So why don't we open up for questions here? And let me read you this. This actually came from Richard here. And maybe you react to this. He goes, the real difference was that Servas Traveler, right, is they said they were originator of Airbnb, right? Can you tell us a little bit about Servas? Are you familiar with them and their business model versus Airbnb?
So let me see the definition of service first. Service, I'm not so familiar with the terminology.
They were the originators. Service was actually, so Airbnb is based on a concept that was developed successfully by Servas International 71 years ago. I did not know that. No one will say that Airbnb is an economic value added copy of Servas, but it is. So, you know, tweaking an idea and making it successful is still an innovation, in my opinion. So I think that, yes, this might have been something there, but there's probably a tweak in the business model that have generated here. But, you know, so why don't we talk a little bit about the kind of, what is the future like? Because I know, Jungho, I was reading an article in the Wall Street Journal maybe 2 weeks ago, and they said that Airbnb now has returned back to its revenue level before COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and what was astonishing is that the CEO and the leadership team realized that the market has shifted
Yeah.
from basically traveling, traveling to another country to book a house or an apartment, right? That people now, because of COVID-19, we're going to look at something within the radius of 300 miles.
Mm-hmm.
So they redid the whole business, the whole search engine optimization of Airbnb to allow for people to find these cottages, these beach houses, these stuff that is in the 300-mile radius, which you can drive to, okay, and stay there, right? But what does it say about Airbnb and the future of Airbnb in terms of COVID-19? Maybe your reaction to this.
Actually, I have talked about this issue with my graduate students last week, and from our readings and our discussion, we actually, drew a conclusion that domestic tourism will be one of the key trends that can offset all the losses from the COVID-19 in the rental home sharing businesses, and maybe the travel industry in general. Domestic tourism can be an answer or a new trend. And the younger travelers will travel more often. That is the insights coming from McKinsey and Company's recent report on China's travel restart. And it showed that the younger travelers who are less vulnerable to COVID-19 will spend more on travel. And, not just younger generation, young people who has more income than the average will travel more, and probably that will be the profitable segment that Airbnb or any other travel businesses can focus on. So younger traveler, domestic tourism, and the like you mentioned from this Wall Street Journal article, you know, certain radius you can drive by car will be another popular travel product, tourism product that Airbnb or any other rental home businesses can focus on.
Good. Here, this is something from Kindle here. What are your thoughts on the impact to business travel? With COVID and social unrest, we see corporations being focused on duty of care, safety, security, cleanliness standards, and are being more conscious of knowing where the travelers are staying. What's a good, excellent question by Kindle.
Yeah, great question. Kindle, we talked about it. I invited one guest speaker in one of my in my undergraduate course, and she's the director of revenue management at Le Méridien Hotel, which is one of the franchises of Marriott. And she mentioned she cannot sugarcoat the recent future of business travels. Actually, she's checking day-to-day operations of her properties that she's in charge, one in Boston, the other in Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City still gathers people, and they have some ongoing business travels, but it is not as same as before COVID. And of course, Cambridge, Boston area that she's in charge of, the property that she's in charge of, they are showing a drastic decrease this year. And she just checking her regular contacts, event meeting planners, but everyone has no clear picture for the next few months or the next year. But yeah, but she's trying to see the silver lining of the current situation, because she has gone through the 2010, 2009 economic financial crisis. And after 2 years of the Lehman Brothers crisis, she could see slight uptick, and afterwards, the travel industry kept growing for next 5-6 years. So maybe another 1 or 2 years, she hopes to expect certain recovery as she faced and she experienced a few years ago from the economic crisis in 2009, 2008,
So,
actually.
Jungho, this is a question for me now, okay? And it's going to be a difficult question, okay? So maybe you know this. So we know, and I'm a big, I used to be with Starwood, which is now Marriott, okay?
Mhm.
But Starwood or SPG, right? It used to have a very loyal corporate or very loyal customers, in which you had your platinum, your gold, your silver, right? And those executives, those corporate executives, did most of the bulk of the travel with the SPG, and they were very loyal. If they had to pick between Le Méridien, which is an SPG, versus another hotel, they would pick the SPG properties because that's how it worked. They knew, they knew the Westin, they knew basically the properties, they knew the services, they knew how it worked, they were comfortable with it, they would travel all the time there, and they built a very loyal base. Okay?
Yep.
Now with COVID-19, now with everything like this, a lot of people that use the point system, that have built up these point systems, these loyalty things, are concerned about what's going to happen in the future. How would the Marriott, how would all these people handle the loyal base, the customer base, right? Would they continue offering them the same services? Would they do something different? Would they honor it? Would they continue to say, you stuck with us in good times, and you're probably going to be the first people to come back when things are good? How do companies handle loyal customers, right? And what are they doing? They can't just ignore them. What are they doing to loyal customers?
That's a tough question.
I know, I said it's a tough question.
Just one of the simple solution. I'm not actually sure the company's name. It was one of the airlines. I'm not sure. It was one of the Star Alliance.
Yeah, Star Alliance. Yeah.
SkyTeam, I guess. Delta or Korean Air. They extended loyalty points or benefits another year recently due to COVID.
Yeah, but that's coming up, but that ends in December, and COVID is not going away till maybe till mid of next year. That's the point. You know what I mean? And it's a fascinating thing here, because if you're going to recover, and if the airline or the hotel or the tourism industry is going to recover, what would you recommend as a strategy for them to recover faster? Who would they target? The loyal customers, or the people that are in the vicinity? What would you approach it? How would you approach it? On top of this, what about the bailouts that are coming to the tourism and hospitality industry? Is that a good thing or a bad thing in your opinion? Of course, it's good, but what will that mean in that sense?
Bailouts. Let me talk about bailouts first. Bailout. I would like to recommend focusing on SMEs recovery first, not the big corporations. Big corporations still, they have certain cash saved in their internal, somewhere in their savings. But SMEs their margins are very small, especially in the restaurant business, including B&B business as well. So we can focus on SMEs recovery first, and bailout should be focused on SMEs revival or SMEs recovery first, and then move on to Southwest Airlines or other bigger players like conglomerate or in the hospitality industry. I heard the news, airline businesses which has a larger lobbying power or bargaining power than the SMEs in the restaurant businesses, they already persuaded Senate or the House to let them get some stimulus package first. But that's kind of opposite, in my opinion. I would recommend to let the politicians, policymakers to focus on bailing out the SMEs in the hospitality and tourism industry first. And the first question was, that was the second question, right? And the first was going back to the loyalty program. Traditionally, many marketing texts, management texts indicate that acquiring new customer costs much more than keeping the loyal customers, right? But I'm not sure the future will be the same. So still, I want to stick with the theory that has been confirmed in the past years. So I would not recommend forgetting about ignoring the loyal customers, but how to keep them engaging with your company, or staying with your company will be the more important question we need to answer. We should keep thinking about it, I guess.
Yeah, good. This is excellent. Well, I want to thank you, Jungho. This is really important, and we are in unprecedented times here. So this is really critical here. So I want to thank you on behalf of ICSB and the George Washington University for the great work you have done. And I will end it here because in 5 minutes we have another event with Professor Nasru, right, on digital entrepreneurship. So you can see the synergies between what you're talking about and the moving forward here. That the tourism and hospitality more and more is going to be embedded into technology as people find and discover and integrate it into part of their experiences here. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. This has been an exceptional session, and we want to thank Dr. Jungho for being part of GW Entrepreneurship Week and kicking us off for this wonderful week of activities here. I want to thank you all. Please go back to the ICSB website, gwoctober.com, and there's the link live for the next session, which will start in 2 minutes. So I want to thank you all. Have a wonderful week, and thank you again, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Take care, Jungho. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.